What I'm going to do here is look at learning a language, and I'm going to use Portuguese as an example here, because a lot of people have said that, it's really a difficult language. But what I'd like to look at is a couple of the mythbusters, of course. So, yeah, we will have a look at things that people say, hey, Portuguese is really a difficult language. It is not. There are many more languages that are really, really difficult. I tried one of the Nordic languages, which is Finnish, and I gave that up as really a bad job. Another myth that comes down the line is babies learn easier than adults. No, they don't. We do. The problem is we're trying to learn things like grammar that babies never learn. Also, often you'll find adverts like you'll speak a language within 30 days, or this app will make you fluent, and blah, 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 blah. Babble, babble, babble. And there's a few other apps we can look at. That is not true. You'll see what is really required on actually learning a language when practicing. An app and other things are not the right way to do it. When I started learning Portuguese, I found things very difficult, where it was on the ear quite difficult. The words flow into each other. A good example I can give you is in front of the house is a garden. Em frente o casa e o jardim. So as you can hear, the words are quite close to each other, very romantic, but you will get the practice. Colloquial meaning was really confusing to me. I went to a braai, a barbecue, and the lady came outside and said to her son, "Eu deixei carne na rua." That directly translates, "Eu deixei." Deixar is the verb deixei. I left o carne, the meat, na rua, in the street. Thought by myself, now why would you leave the meat in the street? Meaning, to her it was I left the meat in the backyard. So those things are quite confusing when you're trying to translate things very directly. So translation is really the death of what you're trying to do. You need to learn the colloquial stuff. You also need to make mistakes. When I started learning Portuguese, I had a girl that actually, when I tried to speak, she used to laugh at me. My pronunciation wasn't correct, my word order wasn't correct, and it was really a bit demotivating. So watch out for that and ask people to help. Now you really need to practice, and I'll look at certain aspects that we can do to actually practice. Then also you can actually get a lot of courses online. Now I don't say go for courses, because it does help you to get your vocabulary and some of the pronunciation. However, there's a big difference in Brazilian versus European. I prefer European. There's more Brazilian available. But then it's also between different languages and countries and so on. Bus is a very good example. We have Brazil, we've got Angola, Mozambique, Madeira, in the middle of Portugal. We have words like ônibus, machibombo, autocarro, rápida, which all mean the same thing. It's a bus, so it depends where you are. Then, what I would not recommend is a phrase book. Now, there are many things. Now, there's a book like this, Portuguese in 3 months. Then you go through there and you try to read these phonetical expressions. You try to express. And often when you actually say the word to Portuguese people, totally wrong. So I don't believe in this. Portuguese phrase book, there's Portuguese for Dummies. You go through that. Yes, it gives you some foundation and it does have some benefit, but no. It absolutely, I would not recommend it. There's another option I'll actually recommend. Computer apps, there's Memrise. I've tried that. It's not bad. It actually has a lot of drill exercises, but it's not fast enough for me. You need to make mistakes, not in Memrise like words. You need to actually look at the situation. You need to look at when people talk to each other, the interaction. This is how babies learn. UTalk is another one, not bad, fairly cheap, but basics again. Dictionaries. Now, when I actually started learning Portuguese, and I'll show you exactly what I bought. I bought 2 main dictionaries. The first one is the Dicionário Inglês, Português Inglês, and really good because it actually gives you, if you want to look up a word, for the people that are South African, a dragonfly. That's a very good example. What is a dragonfly in Portuguese? Now, South African Portuguese will not know that word easily. It's a libélula, where the accent is a bit different. If you're Dutch, because libella is the actual word in Dutch, naaldekoker in Afrikaans, so that dictionary will give it to you. And also the English and Portuguese, same one. Another one I've got, which I really recommend, is called Dicionário Prático Ilustrado, which is only a Portuguese dictionary and it explains it very nicely. And this is the way I'd like to learn, and I really recommend that. You need to forget to think in your own language. You need to think in the language that you are. So, dictionaries, important because you look things up, but don't try to use the dictionary to actually learn. Now, the biggest effect you can do for your language learning is an action called shadowing, which I will explain. Now, shadowing depends on the following requirement. Yeah, when you learn a language, it's like doing self-defense moves, karate moves, repetition and so on. After a while, you don't have to think to say the word, it must just happen. So shadowing will allow you to create a connection between the ears, the brain, and the mouth. Visually as well, when you look at the words, when you actually watch a video, and these kind of things, it will help you. So this is shadowing. Now, what does it mean by shadowing? Before we get into shadowing, what I usually suggest as well, vocabulary, really important. The most common words, I usually take 1,000 words. I've done a few languages, and those 1,000 words I would then recommend are the 1,000 words in the language that's used. Not just 1,000 words that you pick up from English, for example, because Portuguese will be different, Greek will be different, and so on. So you need to concentrate on that. Now, also some basic about the language, such as gender and tenses we need to consider. Now, avoid the actual grammar. I think also the biggest mistake when I actually started my first additional language to my first two languages at school that I had was German. And in German we had the tenses. We had nominative, dative, accusative, vocative. And you focus on the gender, you actually leave the school, you've done a few years in German and you don't know how to speak the language. It's a common issue. In Portuguese, there are things like gender. There's male and female. Basically, the rule is if it ends in an A, it's female. If it ends in an O, it's male. However, we have some exceptions. For example, cinema ends with an A, but no, it's male. Or cinema. And gato or gato, that's a cat. There's no things like agata, it's o gato. And that's what I've heard from some people that are Portuguese, don't speak the language properly, but want to learn the language. The thing that really caught me in the beginning was a permanent and not so permanent issue. I am English, it's permanent. Eu sou inglês. I am, sou. I am skinny, or I'm fat, estou gordo. Estou means not permanent, so I can become skinny at the end of that. So you need to think about that. Numbers, days of week, family, and so on, others common words, part of the 1,000 words you have to learn. Now also, look up the words, but don't try to remember everything, because it is like when we actually say it's going to be like swimming against a stream at the ocean. I'll get into that now. We're going to do that. When learning a language is like getting into the beach, the ocean. So when you get into the ocean, there's the waves in the beginning. It's really difficult to get to the next step. That is the problem. But once you get past that point, it becomes easy and you can swim. Language learning is exactly like that. You're going to battle in the beginning. It's going to be really difficult to actually do things. You're starting to say things, there's confusion, there's future tense and so on. Practice. And once it happens, and this is where shadowing gets the benefit of what you're going to do. I'll give you some complexities in the language. I will wake up 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, there's a couple of ways of saying that. Acordar is to wake up. Acordar-me is a reflexive verb. But now, if I want to say future tense, and I want to use the verb levantar, levantar is to lift, to wake yourself up. Levantar-se, also reflexive. Now, if it's future conjugation, I can say levantar-me eers 9 horas. As you can see, there's a lot of difficulty that you can get, but if you practice this and the brain starts doing it without thinking, you have to repeat everything. So now, the next step you have to do to actually learn a language to be fluent, it's not about grammar and things like that, is the shadowing technique. Now, the shadowing technique, select a novella, a soap opera. Very good because you can follow the story. Now, shadowing means that you can actually watch it. Now, I'm an English person. I'm watching a Portuguese novella, and the guys are talking. Now, you're trying to do the following. You don't know what the words mean, but you're going to try to pronounce every second, third, fourth word, whatever. You don't have to pronounce every word. So, as they speak, you're going to try and pronounce it the way they pronounce it. What's happening there? The brain, the mouth, and the ear are doing the connection. This is shadowing. So do that for a while, and then do your 1,000 words, and now and then look at some verbs and so on. But as you learn your words, your 1,000 words, you get those verbs, you get those different kind of tenses and so on. And as you shadow more and more, the brain, like a baby, is going to select those words and say, that's what it means. And it's going to go put it in there, and then it's going to put it together. And that will be the quickest you learn a language. How long will it take you? If you immerse yourself in the language, like Portuguese, you forget about English, you immerse yourself, put yourself out there and so on, look at certain things, watch the news, do anything, and try to converse, it'll take you about 12 weeks. Within 3 months, you'll be able to speak the language. Ask questions, give feedback, and let's take it from there.